Good morning, random viewers. Let's start the day by turning on some lights. Looks better. Now I'm going to set up the light stand. That looks nice. I kinda hate underexposed video. In the previous chapter I said I was going to move this production to the other room, but I've decided to do that job on this lathe, and I will explain why. These are the slides from my black Karger lathe, and as you can see they fit on this lathe as well. I will use this piece to keep it in balance while I set up a clamp underneath the bed. On my black lathe I modified these clamps with a piece of mild steel that would prevent them from turning when clamping things down. Unfortunately, as you can see, they don't really fit on this lathe, because the slit that runs over the full length of the bed is smaller. So I'm going to use the original clamp from my tailstock. But there's also a problem, because I don't know if you can see this on camera, but the thread here isn't long enough. So I made a fixed washer or a spacer to fix that problem. And because this thread pitch is a rather large one, I cannot use the original handles. So I'm going to use the handle from the black lathe. And this is a very good modification to do, because it saves a lot of time clamping things down. And as you can see, the clamp is turning around. So, that should do it. A quick slide. One more thing. The height of the bed on this lathe is a bit lower. This is about 12 centimeters to the top of the V-way. And the other is a little bit more than 13 centimeters. But most of the things like center height and the V-ways on the bed are identical. So that was a whole lot of extra work just to show you another small difference between the two lathes. So for the next shot I need to move the tool rest closer to each other. While I'm at it, might as well loop this thing up a bit. That's a bit much. Alright, that is as far as it will go. I'll move the cross slide on the other lathe. And then I should be able to slide them closer to each other. Let's remove this so it won't be in my way. So it turns out that that was a whole lot of extra work for nothing, because I always thought that the top slide on the blue lathe was just a little bit lower than the one on the black lathe. Well, it's not completely on the same level, because this straight edge is rocking a bit. It really shouldn't matter on which lathe I drill and ream the hole for the boring bar. But I'm here, the light is here, so I guess I'll continue on the blue lathe. It shouldn't matter for the end result. But at least now I know that I can easily borrow boring bar holders made for the blue lathe on the black lathe. But it is convenient to have a boring bar tool at both lathes and not having to drag things around. Well, I'm going to bring back these slides to the black lathe, and then we can continue with the boring and reaming. I guess I made that spacer for nothing, but eventually I might find a new use for it. So that's back where it belongs. And last but not least, the knob. I was hoping that by using the blue lathe, the boring bar would end up a little bit above center height, and that is probably a good thing according to some, although personally I haven't really experienced that. But above center is definitely better than below center. I just spent some time cleaning up this new piece of Scraptonium, because from this point on I need to reshoot most of this chapter. You see, all of the clips I shot had no audio, just a constant hum. For some reason the external microphone was partially disconnected, and that fucked me fully. As you can see, this piece is a little bit wider than what I used previously, and that's probably a good thing, because there will be more room for some set screws. We forget about that one, and now I need to do some permanent marker layout. So that's more than enough. And now I need to scribe a line on here using my old calipers. Let's see, that's 13mm wide. So I will set the calipers to 6.5 and then scribe a line from both sides of the block of Scraptonium. So I will aim at the middle here. And one more thing, I will mark this here, so I will have a little point to reference the focus tracking on. Hope that works. So now let's go to the blue Karger lathe and start drilling and reaming again. Hopefully I can get it right this time. So the first thing I need to do is remove the little 4-jaw chuck and then install a drill chuck. And here's my homemade screw-on drill chuck. Next I need to move the slides closer to the headstock. Something like this. Yeah, that will work. Now I need to remove the pointy bit. and install the workpiece. I'll store this together with the shims. That's probably a good idea. Clearing off some swarf. And here's the workpiece. And as you can see, I marked the wrong side. I will use this block of steel to line it up parallel with the bed. So next I need to tighten up this nut, and hopefully the top slide won't pivot again. Okay. Next I need to get a center drill. I will use a small one. That's easier to line up with the line I scribed on the workpiece. So next I need to move the workpiece a little bit closer to the action. Trying to watch from above. I think that's close to the middle. That will work. Now let's put some oil into the headstock. Just a little drop, because most of it gets pushed upside and then gets trapped inside this pot here. So that's done. Next I'll fire up the frequency drive. And now let's get this done. That's probably good enough. Next I need to move the top slide and install a pilot drill. So I have here this 4.5mm pilot drill. It might be a little bit big, but at least it's long enough. So let's get this set up. Now that I have the camera over here, let's also mark this place for the focus tracking. Or maybe a little smiley for face priority. Now it's probably also a good time to tighten up the set screws on the cross slide, so I will not accidentally move them. I cannot stick it all the way inside the chuck, otherwise there will not be enough drill left to drill this hole. So for my next shot I've set up 3 cameras, including my old Panasonic G3 that records in a different format, so I'm not completely sure it is going to work, but I'm going to try anyway. Okay, that's 2 cameras rolling, and now let's switch on the third that is suspended from the ceiling. That's rolling as well. A little bit of lubrication, and then let's drill this thing. I'll be right back. I had to go to the other room to get my piece of tin that will protect the lead screw. You might remember this thick washer. It will keep the tin in place. A bit more speed. I think it's time to clean out the chips. So when the thrust light gets harder to turn and the hole fills up the chips, or the flutes fill up the chips, the amperage on the frequency drive goes up a little bit. I think it's almost time to move one of the cameras so I can film the breakthrough. Yep, I'm going to move the camera because we're getting close. The workpiece has run into the front of the chuck, so I guess I need to move the drill bit just a little bit. So that should be enough. Let's continue. There was nothing left to do. Well, job done. Next up, a 7.5mm drill bit. Move this out of the way. Here's the 7.5mm drill bit. That has a little bit of damage. But that shouldn't matter for this hole. A little bit of oil. And let's get this done. Slowing the frequency drive a little bit down. Here we go again. I'm getting close. Damn gravity. And now the last bit. And that's another breakthrough. Backing out. And we're done with the 3 cameras. Now let's replace this 7.5mm drill bit with an 8mm Reamer. Next I will try and film a 4-camera reaming scene. I tried 3-camera drilling, so why not? Okay, all of the cameras are rolling. Switching on the frequency drive. Dialing back the frequency to about 8 or 9 Hertz. I'll go for 10 Hertz. That is about 100 RPM. That should be enough. And now I need to loop up the Reamer. And I will also shoot some oil into the hole, the exit hole. Now let's do this. Me turning the handle might fuck up the focus on the Olympus camera. Yeah. It's already screwed up. I will reposition that camera. Okay. Let's continue. I'm trying to go real slow, but it's kind of hard. This camera has already fucked up the focus. I'll switch off focus tracking. So that's better. I'm checking the amperage on the frequency drive. It's 0.8 amps. Not a whole lot. The first chips are showing up at the rear opening. This is not a left-hand spiral fluid Reamer, but still it pushes out the chips rather well. Damn touchscreen is acting up. Trying not to bump into a tripod or the light stand. I just reset the focus on the Olympus camera. I just farted. Sorry. And there is the Reamer. So that job is done. Now I'm backing out the top slide. So now I can stop all the 4 cameras and have a look at the footage. I think that the Reamer swerve is pretty cool. And now a little cleanup before I check the fit. I think I'll fire up the lathe to do the other side, because I'm not a big fan of manual labor. And now a little brake cleaner. Now let's see if she fits. Feels good. Little play, but what do you expect with a Chinese Reamer? Good enough for me. Now let's replace this Chinese Reamer with a chamfering tool. Now let's clean the other side of the hole. Now, against my manual labor policy, I won't be firing up the motor for this job. You see, sometimes a good hand job just works better. It probably feels nicer too. A little bit more. Alright, I think that's enough for this chapter. It certainly took me long enough. Next time, or the next chapter, in this epic boring bar holder remake video, I will install some set screws. But I will probably stay away from the multi-camera setups, because those really load up my computer to a point of frustration. So till then, and to be continued.